Some life lessons are easier to learn than others, but some have taken me roughly 40 years to learn. But now that I have learned them, they are an integral part of me living a life that is in alignment with my values, and so I can live a life that is meaningful to me. So I wanted to share these lessons with you, and some of them may be relevant to you, and maybe others not so much. So feel free to take what works and discard what doesn't. So the first lesson I've learned in my 40 plus years on this planet is that right now is all we have. And I know this sounds really cliche, but it is so true. As human beings, we're not good at focusing on the present moment. Our minds are usually wandering off on something that's happened in the past or worrying about something that may or may not happen in the future. And the problem with not being present is that we tend to miss the important moments that are going on around us now. This isn't to say that it's bad to plan for the future or to think back to the past if we want to learn from it. But when we stay stuck in those places, we aren't really living. And I don't believe that being mentally present 100% of the time is possible. But what I've got better at doing over time is catching my mind when it goes off into the past or the future and bring it back quicker to the present moment before my thoughts and my feelings get carried away with me. Something that's really helped me with this is meditating. Now I know this has been a bit of a buzzword or a thing that people say they do, but I do 10 minutes of meditation every morning. I think I like to do more of an evening as well, but even just 10 minutes every morning has really helped me to catch my mind early on and notice when it's not in the present moment. And you don't necessarily have to start meditating if that's not your thing, but maybe just be a bit more mindful. Try and notice more when your mind is wandering off. So if you're doing something like washing the dishes or doing the hoovering, is your mind on that actual activity or has it wandered off onto something else? And even that act of just starting to notice that will likely make you aware that your mind is wandering off far more than you realised. Lesson number 2 is that perfection will paralyse you. Having high standards for what we do is one thing, but perfectionism, in my view, takes this to an unhealthy level. This might have been about the way I looked or the standard of the work that I produced in my job. It was never perfect, no matter how many tweaks I made to it. And this endless pursuit of perfectionism, it exhausted me. It didn't help me necessarily get better at something. It tired me out. It was mentally draining. And then one day I realised I had to get off this cycle. There was never going to be a time where I attained this high standard. And what I learned to do over time is come to an acceptance of good enough. So when I wrote a report for work, even though I wanted to keep going over and over it, making endless tweaks, I told myself this is good enough and I walked away from it. Now, it wasn't as easy as that. I really had to make a conscious effort to do that, even though in my body it felt really uncomfortable. But the more I did it and proved to myself that actually the report was good enough because no one was coming back to me and telling me how bad it was, I proved to myself that that was okay, that good enough was perfectly fine. And the great thing about being able to step away and know when something is good enough is that it's freed me up to get on with other things. Before, I kept getting stuck on a particular thing, wanting to get it just right, and it stopped me from doing other things that I needed to do. It's also been a good lesson for me to accept that I'm not perfect. And I know rationally now when I say it, that is common sense, but I think at the time I thought that I had to be perfect and I had to strive for that. Falling short in some way wasn't acceptable to me in my mind. And of course I don't go around trying to fall short deliberately, but when I do, I'm much more compassionate to myself now, and I accept that I am going to get things wrong in life, but the most important thing is that I learn from them and move on. Lesson number 3 is trust your intuition. Now, I'm not suggesting that we follow our intuition solely all the time, because I think it's good to have a balance between intuition and critical thinking. However, I do think we ignore our intuition too often. For me, intuition shows up in my body. So if there's maybe something I'm asked to do or a situation has come up, I will tend to feel in my body whether I feel comfortable with that thing, whether I get a good feeling about it, or whether something's off. But sometimes I've written those feelings off as being silly and, I don't know, perhaps me being paranoid. But over time, I've learned to listen to those signals a lot more. And if something doesn't sit right with me, I won't dive in. I'll be a little bit more cautious. Equally, on the other side, there are times where maybe a situation presents itself and I feel really excited about it and my whole body is excited. But that's where the critical thinking can come in, because again, I don't want to dive into something just because I feel good about it and perhaps it's not entirely the right decision. That's where critical thinking can come in, about looking at the pros and cons for going into a certain situation or doing a certain thing. So balancing out out that intuitive feeling with some objective sort of decision making. But certainly I'm far less likely now to discount my intuition, because I think for me it plays a really important part of my decision making process. The next lesson is to be grateful for the mundane and the simple. I'm going to sound extremely boring now, but hey, that's me. If my husband is out for the day, or if I've got the day off work, I love nothing more than pottering around the house, just doing bits and pieces like putting a load of washing on, tidying things up, running the vacuum cleaner around. I just find it so relaxing because it's not mentally draining in any way. It doesn't take much mental effort. I can just do it. So I work in mental health, which can be emotionally challenging at times. And as I've gotten older, I've come to appreciate the simple things in life. I've come to appreciate that doing the mundane things in my life outside of work, it's really important. It keeps life ticking over, but it's really weird. It helps to ground me. It helps to ground me back in reality, because I guess when you're working with a lot of distress all the time, it can be easy to get caught up in that and think that the world in general is a terrible place. But coming back to the simplicity of just doing a few things at home is really helpful for me to bring me back into myself and bring me back to a more realistic view of the world. The next lesson I learned is the power of saying no. I used to be a people pleaser in the sense that I would consistently put other people's needs before my own. And I'm not saying it's bad to do things for other people, and I do feel good when I'm able to help somebody else. But what was happening was I was neglecting myself for the sake of other people, which led to me feeling resentful because I was doing things that I didn't particularly want to do, and they were taking me away from the things that I really did want to do. Being able to say no in life is really important, in my opinion, because when we're able to say no to one thing, it means that we're opening ourselves up to something else that we would rather do, or something that's more important or meaningful for us. Every time we say yes to something that we don't really want to do, we're closing that off. We're taking ourselves away from an opportunity to do something we really want to do. Greg McKeown talks about these boundaries, and he calls it the art of the graceful no in his book Essentialism. And I found it really helpful because he teaches you ways that you can say no without actually saying no if it's really difficult for you, but there are other ways that you can do it. So I will put a link down to his book in the description if you're interested. It's really important that we can maintain our personal boundaries, and like I say, this isn't about being selfish or about not helping others, but it's also about making sure that we give time to ourselves and don't neglect our own needs in life. The next lesson I learned, which was probably one of the hardest lessons for me, was the only change you can control is in yourself. I used to get so angry and frustrated when things didn't go the way I wanted, or people didn't do things the way that I would necessarily do them. And me getting angry and frustrated was totally pointless. It was a waste of my emotional energy because I can't control other people. I can't control certain situations. I might be able to have influence over those things, but I certainly can't control them. But what I can control is myself. And if I want to see changes, then I have to make those changes in myself. And once I realised this, it was far less frustrating because I actually realised that yes, the change had to come from me, the control was in me. And so that felt much more empowering. And the ironic thing is that when I changed myself, when I started to do things differently, things around me started to change, because I guess they changed in response to my new ways of responding. So if you find yourself getting frustrated with people or with things not going your own way, take a step back, stop getting wound up about it, because you cannot change other people. Have a look at yourself and see what you could do differently. The next lesson I've learned is that what you think you want in life may not be what you really want. I studied for about 9 years consecutively because I wanted to work towards a specific career. My studying was going to help me get towards that particular career, work my way up, and hopefully earn a decent wage to be able to afford not only the basics but afford luxuries and do what we wanted to do, being able to go on holiday and not have to worry too much about the monetary side. So I guess the goal in my head was more money oriented, but over time I've realised that money was never the goal. Money wasn't really what I wanted. What I really wanted was freedom. What I wanted was to be able to do more of the things that I wanted to do and not necessarily work as much. And so as I've got older, I'm now, I guess, rethinking what I want out of life. You know, that cliche of work-life balance. I enjoy my work, I enjoy my job, and there are also things I want to do outside of work which give me fulfillment, and that I may need to adjust the balance between work/life ratio in order to do some of the other things I want to do that may be a bit trickier with my current balance as it is now. So that's why it's worth digging deeper about what your ultimate goal is, what you really want, because on the surface you may want more money, or you may want a higher position at work, you may want to work for yourself yourself, but what is that goal really about? What is underneath that goal? Because when you can identify what it is you really want, it may be that you don't necessarily have to do the thing that you're aiming for. It may not be that you have to earn more money, for example. It may be that you have to adjust your priorities, adjust your spending. You may be able to cut your cloth accordingly so that you don't need to work to get yourself to a certain level or position in a career. It might be that you want to simplify your life a bit so that you don't have to earn more money in order to live, if that makes sense. So when you're looking at goals, when you're thinking about what you want to do, really think about, is this what I really want? Or underneath it, is there something deeper that I'm looking for? And are there other ways to get there? The next lesson is your physical body is important and also totally irrelevant. So hear me out, let me explain. Our physical bodies are amazing. They get us around life. They take us to where we want to go. They are extremely resilient organisms that can heal and repair despite the amount of abuse that we put them through. However, I also think they are irrelevant to who we are as people at our core. I made a video recently, which is up on the channel, about taking part in a really empowering project. So to summarize, basically I got nude in front of 60 other women that I didn't know, and then we all got nude and walked up and down a catwalk in front of a live audience that had paid to come and see us. And it was all about female empowerment, letting go of the shame surrounding our bodies, challenging the tendency of media and culture to sexualize women's bodies when actually they're far more than just being about that. And the biggest lesson that I took from taking part in that project was that my body is the least interesting thing about me. My body is amazing. It can be sensual, it can be sexual, and at the same time it's a functioning body that maneuvers me through the world. There's far too much focus, maybe more so on women's bodies, on being a particular way, of being viewed a particular way. And I think that way of viewing them puts a lot of pressure on women and can lead to us feeling ashamed of our bodies when they don't meet up to what society or culture expects them to look like. So that experience that I was involved in, there was a lot of anxiety for me. I came away from the day totally exhausted, but it was so worth it. But this leads me on to the next lesson, which is if you want to grow in life, you have to face your fears. We can all avoid our fears and skirt around them. But really, if we want to grow and change and realize what we are capable of, we have to confront what is frightening to us. And no, you don't have to get nude in front of a bunch of strangers like I did in order to face your fears. That was just something I had to do for me to really break that connection with shame that I felt. But think about for you, are there things that you are avoiding, things that you find difficult, that you're worried about, and that you're avoiding because you're frightened you'll look silly or you'll embarrass yourself or that you're not good enough? Are you frightened of failing? What would it be like to face those fears? What do you think might await you on the other side of that fear? I fully believe that facing your fears can be life-changing. The next lesson I learned is that you struggle less when you let go. So when I felt that things in my life were happening and they were outside of my control, I had a tendency to hold tighter onto them. I would try to take more control in a way to feel safe, to feel more secure. And that not only impacted me on an emotional level, but it would impact others. And sometimes it would drive people away. Letting go can feel as though you're giving up. And I know for me, I really struggled with my past. I had some really difficult experiences as a child. But when it came to letting those go and trying to move past those and focus on the present, it really felt like I was saying, well, the past didn't matter. You didn't matter. It's irrelevant. And I knew that it wasn't irrelevant, but letting go felt really uncomfortable. In my head, I saw there as being two choices for me. First choice was I hold tightly onto the past because it mattered, but then I would still be consumed with anger about it. Or if I let go of the past, I would free myself. I could perhaps start to let other feelings come in about the past that I needed to address. But at the same time, then it felt like the past wasn't relevant. What I learned though, through lots of therapy, which I'm really grateful that I was able to access, is that I can let go of the past and it still can matter. I could let go of the anger about the past, but it didn't mean the past didn't matter. It meant though that the past didn't dictate my life in the present. And letting go doesn't just necessarily have to be about the past. It could be about letting go of unhealthy friendships or relationships. It might be about letting go of other people's expectations of us that hold us back in life. And if you want to know more about the process of letting go and why it's important that we learn to let go of things that are holding us back, then check out the video that's on the screen. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.